Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Village of Hastings on Hudson, New York, Board of Trustees and Board of Education joint work session. Today is Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Village Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call of the Board of Trustees?
Trustee Fleisig.
Present.
Trustee Alligood.
Here.
Trustee Merton.
Present.
Trustee Sundberg.
Present.
Village Manager Murphy.
Here.
Thank you all.
Present.
Mayor Drake. I don't know why I did that. I was thinking of Attorney Whitehead, and I was like, oh, she's not here.
We don't normally do a roll call, but I'll do one of our trustees. Trustee Weinstein. Present. Trustee Barone.
Here.
Trustee DiMartino.
Present.
Trustee Meyer.
Present.
Trustee Delpia is present as well. And I'd also note the presence of our student representatives who are part of the board, Joaquin Toledo Che and LHU. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. I have a few people just to thank for getting us to this point. I thank especially Linda Fosina, our Way Coalition Coordinator, and Joanne Reed-Stokes, our Director of Youth Services. Thank you to Board President Alex Del Piaz, Superintendent Dr. McCursey, Village Clerk and Village Clerk Anthony Costatini, and Village Manager Mary Beth Murphy, School District Clerk Melissa De La Barrera, and also we thank Ellen Hendricks, who's not here. She's the head of Congressman Latimer's White Plains office, who is trying to help us extend our current drug-free community grant program another 5 years. Thank you to all of the Board of Trustees who are here this evening, and thank you to all the Board of Education members who are here. Also, thank you to Principal Clayman, Assistant Superintendent Szymanski, and also our student representatives. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Over the last couple of years, many of the groups that I meet with throughout the village have asked, what do we do and why can't we work more with the school district, and how can we fix that, and how can we work more with the Board of Education and the school district? Obviously, these are two separate taxing authorities. These are two separate elected bodies, so there's not a lot that we can do as far as governance together, but Linda and I met shortly after I became mayor, and we were going over the most recent student survey of our high school and some middle school students, I believe. And the thought came to my mind, this is an opportunity for our two boards to get together and have a joint work session. And I think this is a milestone occasion. I'm not sure if this has ever happened in the village.
Here, here.
Thank you. I thank Anthony Constantini, our village clerk and village manager, because they're the first people I called just to make sure it was legal. And they said it is legal. And we did our research, and that's why we conducted 2 roll calls. We have 2 sets of minutes. Our technology director upstairs is recording this. He will be sharing it to the schools side of this as well for posting on your website after this is completed. So I appreciate all of that. After that, I contacted President Del Piaz and Dr. McCursey. Both agreed and liked the idea. Then we had to set a date. The date, I looked at the school calendar, and I noticed you all have a lot more meetings than we do, and including the superintendent. And actually, tonight just jumped out. It was actually, I had to look all the way through the end of June, actually, and I really didn't want to go that long, especially because our side was ready to present on this, and they wanted to present to both boards, and I felt it was important to get this done earlier, and actually tonight seemed to be the only night that all of you and Dr. McCursey were actually available. So that's why we are here tonight. With that said, thank you to all of us, all the board members for being here. Thank you to Ella Chu and Joaquin Toledo Che for not only attending, but also presenting with Principal Clayman. I turn it over to President Del Piaz.
Thank you, Mayor Drake. I want to extend a thank you as well to Mayor Drake, to the trustees, Joanne, Linda, and everyone, and Chief Dosen as well. You know, when we were going through the bond process last year, there was so much material I was looking into. And I remember I found one study, because I was sort of curious, and I was trying to find a study, what was the impact on a village of a school? What was the positive impact of it? And I found a study that said that when a school can lend a village a sense of place, so that it's not just coordinates, on a map, that had an outsized effect on so many things downstream of that. And in particular, it called out schools that were located, as a part of sort of the downtown like we have. So, I'm just so thankful that we're starting this process of working together on certain things or hearing things together, because I think going forward it's going to be a fundamental aspect that defines this town differently from a lot of other places. And I think, I think a lot of residents have different opinions about what defines a sense of place, but I think one thing that's unique in Hastings, my 20 years here, is that we all agree that that's what we're looking for, and that's why we're here. So I want to thank you all again. And I'm looking forward to tonight. I think other trustees have really been looking forward, so in case anybody wants to comment or thank, I just want to leave an opportunity.
Well, I am particularly excited about this inaugural venture between all of us. And not to get nerdy on the group, but all the research shows that strong relationships between the village and the community and the schools makes for stronger outcomes for students, and that's why we're all here tonight. So it's just wonderful, and it's a great step forward.
Thank you, Catherine. I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
I also have to thank our Chief of Police, David Dosen, Lieutenant Robert Gagliardi, and the two officers with them this evening, Officers Fattorini and Officers Minor. Thank you for coming tonight and giving your time. I know two of you are on your off time, so thank you. One interesting point is Dr. Szymanski works professionally with my wife, so hopefully I live up to your expectations and almost get to her threshold, and I hope you give her a good report after we're done this evening. I turn it over now to Joanne and Linda.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Everyone
Yes.
can hear me? Okay. So I also want to thank Mayor Drake for arranging this joint work session of the Boards of Education and Trustees. I'm really honored that this is the topic that has brought you together tonight for the first time, and I welcome everyone present. My name is Linda Facina, and I'm the Coalition Coordinator of Hastings Way. I'm here tonight with Joanne Reed-Stokes, who's the Director of the Youth Advocate Program, to present the most recent results of the Youth Needs Assessment Survey. So I'm planning to go through these slides quickly so we have ample time for discussion. If you have questions on a particular slide, I'd be happy to go back to it after the presentation. So the Hastings Way, oh, this is awkward. Okay, everyone turn around. The Hastings Way Coalition was formed in 2016 and first received a Drug-Free Communities grant in 2018 for 5 years. Our second and final 5-year grant award was awarded in 2023. So as Mayor Drake said, we are currently in year 8, and our funding will end in year 10, which is September of 2028. And that is the way we are planning. There is a proposal out there to potentially extend for another 5 years, but we are not counting on that, although it would be wonderful if that comes through. So all drug-free community grantees are required to collect student data every 2 years, and this was our 5th data collection. The survey instrument we've used the same survey over all 5 administrations, and students took it electronically on their Chromebooks, which we've been doing since COVID. And we'll be comparing our data to national data, and that is collected by the National Institute of Drug Abuse. It's a very long-standing survey, surveys the same grades that we survey in Hastings, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. And we'll also be comparing our data to Westchester County data, and that's from 16 schools that surveyed in the 2024-2025 school year. So it's 1 year behind what our data is, but it is the closest we have to just compare to our county counterparts. So participation rates over 60% allow for reliable results, and you can see that all grades were above 60, and in fact, the 8th graders were 100%. They actually took the survey on Halloween, which might have something to do with that, but we had great participation in 8th grade. So this slide is my favorite one this year. It shows great reductions across the board. Alcohol is the substance that's most used by youth in Hastings, followed by marijuana and e-cigarettes. And you can see really nice reductions every year from the highest point in 2019. We do have a slight increase in that bottom line, cigarette use, that is now equivalent to e-cigarette use, which has obviously decreased dramatically since its height in 2019. So this next slide is just the same alcohol line from the previous slide, and it's compared against binge drinking. So binge drinking is defined as having 5 or more drinks in a row within the past 2 weeks. And it is the most associated with high risk. In 2023, binge drinking was 28% of those who reported past 30-day drinking. So although the number of youth reporting drinking, that yellow line, has decreased, the percentage of those who binge drink has actually increased because it's from a smaller group of students to 44%. So the next group of slides will look at each substance by grade in more detail. So first we'll look at alcohol, and you can see that alcohol use has decreased in all grades. And for 10th and 12th graders, alcohol use is less than half of the highest rates reported in 2017 and 2019. And so the slides will all be similar for each substance. We'll look at the trends over time, and then the next slide compares our current use to the county and national levels. So you can see alcohol use increases as students age, and our rates are higher than national but similar to county rates, which is in the one that's in brown. We're in purple, and national is in yellow. Binge drinking rates are very low in 8th grade and held steady in 10th and 12th. But as I previously stated, although the rates have held steady or increased only slightly due to the decrease in the number of kids reporting alcohol use, the percentage of those binge drinking is much higher. For seniors, half of those reporting any alcohol use report binge drinking. And comparing to the rates of national and county, we are higher than national but very similar to county rates. Okay, now we'll move on to marijuana. Marijuana use has decreased in all grades, and use is at its lowest point in all grades since we began doing these surveys. 8th graders report no marijuana use, but 10th and 12th graders are above both national and county rates. So even though our rates have been decreasing year by year, we're still higher than county counterparts. Okay, moving on to e-cigarettes. E-cigarette rates have decreased dramatically since their highest levels in 2019. And then measured for the first time this year, we also asked a question about nicotine pouches. That's a new substance that unfortunately is being touted as having health effects, especially for athletes. And we learned that the rates are very similar to e-cigarettes. The small cohort of students, it's about 16 that report using tobacco products, it's all related. So many of that group are using cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and nicotine pouches. And comparing to national and county, all grades report use rates below both county and national rates. So that's really a remarkable finding. Cigarette rates have increased in 10th and 12th grade, and although the rates have increased, this still only represents 10 students in 12th grade. And half of those who report using only on 1 or 2 occasions in the past 30 days. So it's just important, though, even though it shows an increase, it's still a concern, and I do believe it's all related to the nicotine dependence between vaping and the pouches, and I think when you're dependent on nicotine, you'll try anything to get it. 8th graders report similar rates as county and national, and 10th and 12th graders are higher than both county and national rates for cigarette use. So prescription drug misuse, this is one of the things we're most concerned about just because of the contaminated drug supply and the really scary possibilities for overdose with fentanyl out there. So I'm happy to report that no students in 8th or 10th grade reported prescription drug misuse, and only one student in grade 12 said they used prescription stimulants that were not prescribed to them. We are lower compared to the county and the national survey, which only asked 12th graders about prescription drug misuse. So these next slides, this is about perception of risk, and we asked this, it's measured because when students think a behavior is less risky, they are more inclined to engage in it. So ideally, we want to see really high levels for these questions, which we do for all but marijuana in 10th and 12th grade. And I will point out that although the perception of risk for marijuana is low in 12th grade, it has increased from the last time we surveyed in 2023, when it was only 29% for seniors, and it's now 46%. So it is going up, even though it's lower than most other substances. Almost all Hastings students perceive their parents as disapproving of their use of substances, although 12th graders' perception of parental disapproval of marijuana is slightly lower than other substances. But it's still very high and over 80%. So that's positive to see that most students believe their parents would not approve of them using. Most students feel their friends would disapprove of any substance use, although in 12th grade the percentages are lower for cigarettes, e-cigarettes, and half of seniors don't feel their friends would disapprove of their use of marijuana. However, again, both 10th and 12th graders increased this perception of risk from 2023. For 10th graders, in 2023, when we last surveyed, it was 67%, and now it's 83%, so that's a very large increase. And for seniors, it was 39%, and now it's 49%. So it is trending in the correct direction. So the next two slides show only for those students who report use of substances, it's asked where they use them and how they obtain them. So we included this slide because we just want to reinforce the fact that it is a small percentage of students who are reporting use. So it's just the percentages in yellow, and that'll be highlighted again on the next two slides. So this first one, which has a lot of information, so I'll go a little bit slower on this one, but this was where students use. So they were asked, during the past 12 months, did you drink alcohol, use marijuana, or vape in any of the following places? And you can see students could choose more than one answer, so they're not going to all add up to the sample size. But the top three are the same for all substances. In a home with no permission, in an open area, and in another place. So the other information on this list that I'd like to highlight a little bit is some of our concerns. Alcohol use at home with parents' permission in 2025 was 32 students. It's actually the fourth most frequent location. And although that's concerning, it is a much lower number than in 2023 when that was 84. So it has gone down significantly. And I'd like to highlight that the last line, school during the day, was 0 for alcohol. For marijuana, at school during the day was 4 youth. And again, in 2023, it was 15. So that's gone down really dramatically. And then just to also hop back up to that at home with parent permission, only 2 students reported using marijuana at home with parents' permission. So that was also positive to see, although of course we'd love it to be 0. And for vaping at school during the day, it was 9 students, and in 2023 it was 16. So again, everything trending the way we would like to see it. The next slide talks about where students obtain and where they access substances. And again, for all 3, alcohol, marijuana, and vaping, the top 2 places are the same, at a party or from someone under the age of 21. At home with my parents' permission is only a concern for alcohol. The numbers for marijuana and vaping are either 0 or 1. And wait a minute, am I jumping in the wrong place? No, I'm sorry, got myself mixed up a little bit. Okay, so alcohol from home with my parents' permission was 35 students, and I wanted to point out that in 2023 it was 50. The other line that I find is interesting is bought from a store, which is 26 students, and that was about the same in 2023. And also for marijuana, bought from a store was 13 youth, and in 2023 it was 19, so pretty similar. So, in conclusion, I'm going to read these one at a time just because I think that these strengths are just really amazing. It doesn't matter. We can put them all up there. That's fine. So alcohol use rates have decreased in all grades since 2023, and for 10th and 12th graders, it's less than half of the highest rates found in 2017 and 2019. Marijuana use decreased in all grades. E-cigarette use decreased in all grades and is lower than county rates. For 12th graders, this reduction is dramatic, 89%. 8th graders report no use of marijuana or e-cigarettes. No students in 8th or 10th grade report prescription drug misuse, and the 12th grade rate is very low. And most students think their parents would disapprove of them using any substance. And despite those successes, there are some areas that we would like to work on and address. Although the rates of alcohol use have decreased, the percentage of those who binge drink has increased. And for seniors, half of those who report drinking binge drink. So that's an area we'd like to work on. Marijuana use in 10th and 12th grade exceeds county averages. Cigarette use rates have increased slightly in 10th and 12th grade and exceed the county averages. Almost half of 12th grade students do not perceive marijuana use as harmful and do not believe their friends would disapprove of their using it. And although the percentage has decreased significantly from 2023 by 62%, students still report obtaining and drinking alcohol at home with their parents' permission. And although no students report alcohol use at school, a small number, 4 to 9 students, report using marijuana and e-cigarettes at school during the day. And again, both of these numbers are much lower than they were in 2023. And then I'm going to zip through these quickly, but I just wanted to point out some of the current prevention strategies that the coalition uses. We raise awareness to educate the community with social media posts, educational presentations, and media campaigns, and our text messaging parent program, which is a program parents of Farragut Middle School and Hastings High School can sign up to receive messages directly on their phone about once a week, and we cite these statistics and give them areas to talk about with their students to try to just reach them in another way, a more direct way. We reduce availability of substances and promote safe disposal. Unfortunately, we were supposed to work with the police this past Saturday to do a community safety day. It was rained out, but we're going to reschedule it for spring fling. We provide support for healthy choices, and we promote youth leadership by supporting the SAG Club. Most recently, 5 students and their instructor, Emily Kehoe, and Janito, who is our youth engagement specialist, we all went to a youth leadership conference that was really amazing on March 10th. And then this last is the final slide, and I just wanted to talk about, there we go, we're together. That's all right. Our planned prevention strategies, and I'm hoping that this is some of the things that we would talk about tonight, but we obviously want to continue to raise awareness about the issue of youth substance use in Hastings and explore some sustainability ideas, since we are working to possibly only have, we're anticipating only 2 more years of funding. We would love to plan for the continuation of this data collection. It does not take a lot of money to do this survey, and I think it's important to continue tracking, even if, sadly, if the coalition is no longer in existence. I'd love to come up with a strategy for that. We'd like to celebrate the decreases in youth use rates and promote accurate perceptions to encourage additional reductions. So one of the ways, the newer ways of trying to give youth another idea of, they tend to misinterpret that everybody is using. So if we could do an advertising campaign using these numbers to show how many kids are actually reporting use, the science says that will help them to think, okay, I don't have to be part of the crowd because this is not the crowd. We'd love to continue to increase parents' perception of the risk of harm of alcohol and marijuana, encourage no-use family policies by continuing with presentations. We're actually working with the elementary school to bring the Screenagers Elementary Edition to them by the end of this year so that we can start young. I'd love to increase the number of subscribers to our text messaging program, and we could talk about some other programs that might help increase parents' perception of risk. And then finally, to encourage healthy alternative student activities and develop youth leadership. Expanding the SAG Club, it's kind of in a rebuilding phase this year with a new club leader. And that's really all I have, and I welcome any questions you might have or whatever the next part of our agenda might be.
Does anybody, excuse me, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions at all for Linda, Joanne?
Trustee Weinstein.
I had a couple of questions. First off, thank you so much for putting this together. It's really wonderful to see so many of those numbers trending down, which I can only imagine. I don't want to speak for the room. Is excellent news. The couple of questions that I had was I saw that Westchester County is higher on average for use than the rest of the country, but I'm curious. I'm imagining it's because of laws or cultural, perhaps. But how do we compare relative to other counties in the state, upstate, downstate?
I unfortunately do not have that data. I can try to find out, but I have never actually seen use data from other counties. I think that we're somewhat unique. First of all, I should congratulate you for being as open with this data as the village is. Not every school district is as open with this data, and some do not present it publicly. So, and I know that there's a very, very strong concern about comparing one district to the other. I mean, we want to really compare ourselves to ourselves and see increases, but I know that it's just natural to want to compare yourself to at least your county, and we are lucky enough to have an organization, Student Assistance Services, and we're also very lucky to have a large number of drug-free communities programs within Westchester County, and they're required to survey, so we have data that we can aggregate. And I don't know that many other counties have enough to do that, and if they do, I don't think they are doing it. And if they are doing it, they're not publicizing it to us. So unfortunately, I don't have that answer. But just in general, the Northeast is it's just a higher level of substance use than the rest of the country, which is why we like to have that county rate, because if we just compare ourselves to national, we're going to be higher in everything. It's just, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I might suggest, and we've got people who are ready to respond and give you the inside view when you're ready, just want to make sure, because they prepared. But what's very strong here is we have longitudinal data. So I think the within comparisons are incredibly solid, given that 95% of our seniors were here as kindergartners, and now we have multiple years. I do have concerns about the validity and reliability as it relates to the other places, but it's very solid to look within. Just because it's kind of self-selected who's participating when you look at Westchester and even New York State. But the within is very powerful now with these multiple years and such a high percent rate and such continuity amongst those students taking it.
I was very tempted to ask how we did versus Dobbs Ferry, but I didn't. But just I'm interested in just wondering if you have the data, how many other communities in our county are part of the Way Coalition? Like how many are still on that grant program?
Oh, that's a good question. We have, I'm going to say off the top of my head, about 12, 12 to 15. We have an organization called No to Prevent, where at least 10 coalitions came together during COVID and merged, our efforts, and we still do this. We put on webinars. In fact, we had one today with Bertha Madras, who talked about the New York State's latest thought is to legalize psychedelics, and that's a hot topic. The president just signed an executive order, and so, but in any event, I know that we meet monthly under the Westchester Coalition, so I would guess we're in that range of 15, no, I'd have to count, but off the top of my head. I don't know if you know any better, but around that, I'd say.
Just really quickly, I'm being told by our IT director somebody's cell phone may be close to a microphone, if that's what's causing our feedback. If you guys
Might have been mine.
backing your cell phones away. Go ahead, sorry. I know somebody else wanted to ask a question.
I actually have a question just about the prevention programs and the strategies that you had on the screen a few minutes ago. If the change in funding will have a negative impact on those
Can't hear
programs?
the question.
Absolutely.
Do they cease
I
to
mean,
exist?
to
or-
be honest, you know, a lot of what we do, the way that the coalition works, is we really only have me as a paid staff and our youth engagement specialist, and everyone else is volunteer. We work, the idea of a coalition is to take 12 sectors of the community that all have a vested interest in this topic. So it's the schools and government and parents and youth, and there's 12 religious sectors. So almost everyone that works with us is volunteer. But I think it would be very, very hard to lead this effort without a paid employee. And, you know, so I'm just being honest with you. I don't know how much we continue. I'll let Joanne add on
But in
to that.
addition to the coalition, we have the Youth Advocate Program, which in and of itself is a prevention program. So myself, I am a certified prevention professional, so I'm able to lead curriculum, I'm able to work with environmental strategies and respond to issues as they come up. And that's how the coalition was born. It was in response to what we were seeing happening in the community anecdotally.
Terrific. Do you have a projection for what would happen, or any kind of data what would happen if those programs were to, the other programs were to go away or to be reduced significantly, or is that, do you think the results will revert back to 2019?
I would hope
I
that
don't-
that wouldn't
no.
happen, but I think that that's why we're having meetings like this, because we keep it in the forefront and continue to foster those community relationships and engagements. And I think that there are parts of this that can be picked up either by the village, through the Youth Advocate Program, or through the school district.
Great, thank you.
I think somebody on the school board had a question.
So we sort of touched on this a little bit, I think, and I want to congratulate, I mean, this is wonderful and it's great to see this data. But when you really think about it and talk about it, like, how do you both understand this? How do you understand the decrease? What do you think, what are some of the variables, things in specific that
I'll
count?
say that it's not us alone that is seeing decreases. This is a nationwide, substance use rates are decreasing. I think it's one of the reasons that parents have a really hard time thinking that their kids are making these really healthy choices, because that was not the situation when we were young. And so if you look, there are graphs that show what youth, I'm older than many of you, but the numbers just they were very low. There were very few kids that were choosing not to use substances when I was in high school, and that number has decreased steadily. So I think kids are just making really good decisions, and I hope that we're supporting those choices by speaking about the risks and encouraging use in not use and other activities. Joanne, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add.
I just wanted to add that during last school year, we were able to do focus groups with high school juniors and seniors, was it? I'm not sure. It was with high school
Yes.
students. Their biggest report was that they talk to their parents. They are having these conversations with their parents. So I think that that's also plays a role in it. And that's why we focus so much on parent education. So if parents have good education, they can pass it on to their children.
Jody, if I might try and use, because a group looked at the data with Linda and all, we had administrators look at it, then we did our own student focus group, and then you got student leaders here with Mr. Clayman ready to kind of speak to it. So whenever you're ready for that, that may kind of help give you the inside view, a lot of these questions.
Great.
Because they presented and they're ready. It'll be
Okay.
verbal as opposed on the screen,
No, for sure.
but when you're ready.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce Principal Andy Kleeman, to give a sort of boots on the ground view. And I have to say, I see him every morning, rain or shine or winter, greeting the students by name at the front door. So I think he has some authoritative views to give us. So welcome, Principal Kleeman.
Thank you, Alex. I want to thank Mayor Drake for hosting this, and the Board of Trustees and the Board of Education for this joint session. There is nothing more important than our young people's health and mental health. And as an educator, it's the precondition for everything that we do in our building, right? The health and mental health, if that is not in good standing, none of the rest of the good work that we're trying to accomplish is possible. And I also want to thank Linda and Joanne, both for the presentation and for the ongoing partnership. They do a tremendous job, both with the SAD Club as kind of the lead organization within the school, but also with some of the prevention programming that they highlighted earlier. So I'll keep my comments a little bit short and sweet because we can hear directly from our young people who are even closer to this data than I am. But broadly speaking, we are very pleased with the data that was presented, specifically the broad declines in usage with all substances is really something to highlight, and specifically the declines in usage on the campus itself. When there are instances where students enter a bathroom and it smells like marijuana or it smells like vaping, that is really detrimental to a school community. It does a couple things. One is it means that students who want nothing to do with substances are scared to go to the bathroom because it doesn't feel like a safe space. It means that students at a younger age in 9th grade or 10th grade are being exposed to quote unquote cool behavior of 11th and 12th graders, and it begins to normalize that. So to have declines in usage in school itself really helps to normalize the idea that it's actually usage is much less than students might perceive. A couple just pieces that we're keeping an eye on that are a little bit more concerning are around the binge drinking specifically. Right? We have decreases in the overall number of students who are drinking, but consistent levels of students who are binge drinking, which means that, the binge drinking is the behavior that we're concerned about. Right, and that's the behavior that lands students in the hospital. That's gateways to other pieces, and so we see that, and we've got eyes wide open around that. And then the higher marijuana usage than the rest of our county counterparts is something that we have eyes wide open with. With all surveys, we've got more questions than we have answers coming from it, but the surveys give us really good questions to ask, some of which have already come up. And I think that the kind of two key pieces that we're focusing on here now are the why. We're seeing patterns and trends, what underscores them. Some pieces might be very much, some pieces are very much related to exactly what Linda and Joanne highlighted around the conversations young people are having with parents, a robust health education curriculum. We have wonderings about the usage of social media and the extent to which that as a socialization mechanism might be replacing in-person socialization and the role that substances might be playing there. So again, a lot more questions of, we're seeing patterns and trends and we want to be able to dig into the why so that we can build on the successes and replicate them further. And the other piece that we're focused on is the now what? right? And the now what, part of that is to get deeper with the why through conversations with students, student focus groups. This data that you saw today is hot off the presses. Linda and Joanne presented to us 2-3 weeks ago. So we've had some preliminary opportunities to unpack it and have some informal conversations with students, but to begin to formalize some of those panel discussions to get more granular feedback from students around the patterns and trends. And then opportunities to dive deeper into where within our ecosystem as a school do these conversations live, right? We have a really strong health education program. Every high school student by New York State law experiences a health education class. Most students have that in 10th grade. We have some open questions about where there might be opportunities for further touch points. As we saw in the data, we have a lot of 10th graders who might not be using, and then we have more 12th graders who are, right? And so that is developmentally predictable, but it's also a question as a school engaging with a 10th grader who doesn't use in any way, shape, or form, and most of their peers don't, versus engaging with a 12th grader who's getting ready to go off to college, right? Those are different conversations. And figuring out how to build structures into the school program that address those nuances. Again, it's looking at the health education curriculum itself, and then where are those other touch points for all students, and then specifically with the SAD program and where those opportunities are. With that, unless there
No,
are
sure.
additional
Yeah, we'll
thoughts.
welcome our student representatives to add in as well, Ella or Joaquin, whoever.
I want to make sure the trustees understand that per state law, we have student board representatives. They are ex officio non-voting, but Hastings has been one of the first to have it for a long, long time. And indeed, when it was made the state law about 2 years ago, the 60 or 70 districts that comprise my immediate contact group were racing to us for guidance. They're at every meeting, through much of it, and they always bring truth and good reasons. So there you go, launch.
Well, I think from a student perspective, one thing that I've noticed throughout my years is certainly the marijuana use, because I found that it's a lot more common within my peers. But certainly, like, compared to my freshman year and the sort of vaping, I don't want to say epidemic, but it was just a very big problem when I was a freshman, where you'd walk in and there'd be crowds of people just vaping in there. And it certainly did not make going to the bathrooms any moment of fun or just like relaxing. So I've certainly seen that go down as I've gone up to senior year, and I'd say the school has done a great job of bringing that down, because now you barely hear about any instances or like people saying, hey, don't go in that bathroom. But like another thing for me is certainly I have seen binge drinking has been a problem. I mean, many seniors or just students in general don't really know what they're doing or like how binge drinking happens. And I think one thing that can vary is certainly solo cups, and like you mix a bunch of things in it, and so you don't know how much you're drinking, you don't know what you're drinking, and oftentimes you get it from someone else. But I think also an increase in alcohol use or binge drinking could also be linked to the decrease in PAD or sort of social events, because I feel like those have been shut down a lot. So it could be, since there's less of these events, then that means people are more likely to take this as an opportunity to push their limits and see how far they can go, which can become dangerous. Another thing that makes sense was probably the increase from middle school to high school in substance use, because you're obviously exposed to these things, and these social events or like PAD are such like embedded in the social scene. So when I was a freshman, PAD was the place to be, because even if you weren't drinking, you'd be missing out on talking to people, just interacting with people from other schools. And so it was very different from, let's say, just going to like a sporting event. So it's a very like, it's another way to connect with peers. And then one last thing that I would like to point out is, my freshman year, PLs were certainly used a lot to go to PAD, and they'd be checking in on everyone to make sure, like, hey, are you doing okay? Like, how much have you drank? Like, making sure everyone was safe. And I think that was a very big part of, like, why everyone gets the help that they need. And if they need a ride, the PLs were there to help.
Just for trustees, PL is a peer leadership program that we run in the school.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback a little bit off Ella right now. So me personally, I'm not very well acquainted with the history of PAD, but this year and last year, students hear all the time about PADs getting shut down tonight. It's on and off, and I don't know if that's been a thing of the past. Like in the past, every Friday, Saturday night, PAD was up and running. I don't know. But this year, definitely it's been on and off, and as we may or may not know now, it's not happening. So one of the things that I actually wanted to ask, when was the survey administered? Like you said 8th grade for, Halloween for 8th grade, but.
It was early November. It was at the very end of October, early November for everyone. For 8th graders, it happened to be on Halloween. I believe for 10th and 12th, it was the first week in November.
Okay, thank you. I think like Ellis really said it well, that the school culture and student perceptions on substance use, it's like so heavily dependent on what the upperclassmen are doing, so juniors and seniors. So when I was a freshman, the third floor bathroom was not the place to be. You didn't want to go in there. But now this year, we've had aides at every, so on a building level, there's been aides at every bathroom. For a while, you had to sign in to the bathroom. There was only had to be, one person there. And that completely stopped. Like, all the bathrooms were much cleaner, and we still have some problems now. The aides are no longer there, but it's certainly, this, when we want to speak to the why are we seeing these decreases, like, this is something that we can take into account. I also wanted to speak a little bit about student perception of risk. So Dr. McCursey and Mr. Clayman and I, we met, and they asked me how might a student interpret this survey, right? So one of the questions was, what are your, what do you think about your friend's perception of your, your substance use? And as a junior, I've never taken the survey, but if I had, I would have thought of my 7, 8 closest friends. And I just don't know if that is, obviously, there's experts interpreting the data here, but that may, I have no idea what students are thinking about the whole community and the school, right? Because I imagine, someone thinking, if I'm in a room drinking and all my friends are with me, what are they thinking? Versus if I'm in a room and there's 8 people from my grade who don't know me, they're probably thinking something different. But, if they're asked about friends, it just, a lot of these groups can form off, who people, people see each other at PAD or at these social events, and everyone's using the same thing. So that's just something to think about. And yeah, I guess I'll end with the student culture. It's like that is what it's dependent on. That is what we see, and all the work that we do to changing behavior, especially in the upperclassmen, and setting an example for the upcoming juniors and seniors. That's something that's really, really important, and that we hope that we can keep working on.
LF, sure.
I did have one question though. Does this survey collect data about student mental health, or?
You go, Guy.
It does. It does. We were limited to what we could present tonight, but one of the things that the survey asks is about risk and protective factors, and mental health is just one risk factor of many. It could, family conflict, having siblings that use substances. There's a lot of different factors that make it more likely that you will either be more at risk of using substances or more protected. There's factors that protect you as well, being very close to your family, being involved with a religious institution. So there are questions that ask those about those risk and protective factors. They're kind of complicated to explain, and that's honestly why we didn't get too deep into them. They're compared to a norm that the survey develops based on the survey being given to nationally. So it's a little hard to get into it, but we certainly could share that data with you, and we have it. We just didn't present it tonight, and I believe some of it had previously shared with the school.
Yes.
So.
Yes, so we can speak a little bit more to that too. So Ms. Offiero, the Director of School Counseling, had the opportunity to take the results from this survey and cross-reference it with results that we have from our Panorama Diagnostic Screener, which is administered 3 times a year, and that is a diagnostic screener that we use in grades K through 12, and it is confidential, but it is not anonymous. And so if there's any indication of risk that came up through anonymous measures, the counseling team, led by Ms. Offiero, did some cross-referencing to make sure that we were not only looking at internally reported patterns and trends from the school district, but then there was action taken with individual students just to make sure that due diligence was happening. So I did want to mention that. The other thing is I'm very grateful to our teaching staff, especially in the PE and health department. A couple of years ago, we engaged in a curriculum inquiry for physical education and health, and there was a deep dive into the units that we're teaching. And we have a very robust program around substance use, substance abuse, and also thinking about that and the differences from grades 7 all the way through 12. So the units, just to share that information, in 7th grade, students are taught about misuse, abuse, and use, over-the-counter drug abuse, ways drugs are entering the body, nicotine with a focus on vaping, alcohol and the difference between a depressant and a stimulant, marijuana, peer pressure in terms of partying, drugs in our culture, and a focus on advertising. And then in 8th grade, current drug trends, how substance abuse may impact the wellness wheel, so other elements of wellness for people. Addiction and mental health, who is going to be addicted in terms of more vulnerable populations, and identifying students who are more at risk. They delve into treating drug dependence, coping skills without using drugs, so there's instruction around that, identifying household substances, drug laws, and what's happening when you're caught, types of drugs and what they'll do to your body. And then as students move into high school, there is a slight repetition in terms of coming back to the idea of use, misuse, and abuse, and revisiting that again. And then it delves more deeply into impact of substance abuse on the mind and body, analyzing cycles of addiction, evaluating when to get help for a possible overdose, understanding the connection between the use of alcohol and drugs and how that can increase risk for the connections between suicide, homicide, accidents, school failure, delinquency, marijuana use, unwanted pregnancy, STD and HIV infection, vulnerability to coerced sexual activity, and poor academic performance. Dangers of binge drinking are touched upon. I heard what you were saying in terms of maybe it might be more helpful to have around more how does that happen, right? So I will bring that back to our team to look at. The connection between substance use and disease, why and how it begins, coping mechanisms, and then finally understanding laws related to alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So it really is a robust curriculum, and we continue to grow and shift as we need.
Dr. Stamansky, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to open up for any questions or comments from trustees or anyone.
Thank you for this fantastic presentation. It's so good to get the school perspective, the district perspective, the village perspective. I'm looking across at the law enforcement, and I'm wondering, you're hearing all these, I guess I'll look at the chief or everyone here. You work so closely with our students, especially during the week, on the weekends, and I'm wondering if the data you're seeing here reflects your lived experiences with students of Hastings, especially around binge drinking, because I would imagine that you would see that most intimately.
What I will say...
Oh, they'll bring you a mic, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony.
What I will share with the group is that I'm sure you all are aware, we have an office in the school. It's called PAL, Police Adolescent Liaison. And we have officers go there Monday and Fridays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. They bring treats such as pizza. The officers are in plain clothes. They interact with the students. They come into the office, and it's a great program because they develop a relationship. And then when they're out on weekends and something happens, they kind of creates a bond. So it's really been successful. That was started by Chief Bloomer, and it's continued all the way. So that's one thing that we do. Regarding PAD, I really don't want to say too much, but it's a safety issue. We've had beer cans thrown at us. We've had a fight. You're all aware of the activity. Kids as far away as Rye, south of the Bronx, all over the county have been coming here now. It's a problem. We've been responding to fights up there, bonfires, and so I don't really want to speak too much on it, but we have to do our jobs. And so that's why we're up there. We just want everybody to be safe. Flip side to that, what can we do for these? That's what we're trying to figure out, because they deserve something. So we're working on that right now. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to make sure the trustees know, and I know the mayor does and your predecessor does, we have an incredibly strong relationship with the Hastings Police. It's day to day, it's 24/7 when need be, with me, with the chief, but also all our principals and all the rest. The group you see here, I know all of them, enough so they tease me and all the rest, but it's an incredibly important relationship. And superintendents many years ago did not need to worry about relations with police chiefs. But before I got here, my previous police chief reached out to this police chief to say, yes, you can work with Bill. And before that, there was those connections. It goes back 16 years. We can figure out why that's gone on in the last 17 years in the world of schools. But I want to compliment this village for as diverse in thinking and feeling, and that's wonderful in Hastings. There's this common sense that law enforcement from a relationship basis can be there first and foremost. And this is a place when new administrators come to us from elsewhere and a little nervous, oh, should I call Hastings Police? I say, no, Chief wants to hear about everything. They will sort it out from a relationship standpoint. If it has to go somewhere else, it'll go somewhere else. But please take this compliment. Please take this compliment.
Thank you, Dr. McCursey. One of the things I was thinking on that line was the fact that the chief is so progressive in allowing his officers to be in the building every Monday and every Friday. They're also at Hillside, I assume, almost every day. They're walking each building probably every day.
We also have
You don't have to speak to it, Chief. I'm just complimenting.
School security check where the officers are on duty unannounced anytime during the day. They go into the schools and they walk around, just make sure everybody's good, and they interact with kids. But that is in uniform. So we do that too.
And that was one of the thoughts that I was having when we see that the statistic about use in the building being reduced, and also the fact that they're there. I was actually in the building in the high school last week or the week before. I present to the criminal justice class. I've been doing that for about 15 years, maybe more. Officer Minor was with me last year, and former Sergeant Brecker was there with me as well. And I'm wondering, just in thinking that it's giving kids a place to go when they're getting a little bored. They're there on their lunchtime. They're stopping in with the officer during their lunch periods. They're stopping in during maybe even study halls to say hi. I got fresh donuts from Officer Gunther that day, so I don't know if he was stereotyping because he knew I was in the building, but I think it's appreciated, and I think it does give students just in the building a place to go and just hang out and talk. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate the progressiveness of our chief. He's also done a lot of other programs with the younger youth in the village, like coffee or cone with a cop, not coffee with a cop. But he also did coffee with a cop at the Recreation Department Basketball League this year, and had tons of exposure with that parent group and the younger parent group at that. So thanks, Chief. I know you weren't expecting to talk tonight, so I just...
Yeah, just so you know, the police department sponsored the team this year for recreation. So, Officer Patterini and Officer Corelli, when they coaches, not every 4 and 1. Doesn't matter. We had a great season. The parents we had, great. It was great. It was great experience.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I never coached basketball.
It's the first time for everybody.
You know.
I can attest you did quite a good job.
Several basketball coaches sitting right up at this table. I just want to jump on what Tommy talked about, because I'm thinking that probably it's a little different from when you went to school in Hastings. And I think the whole presence of the police in the schools and the tone that it sets and the way that Chief Bloomer years ago started having police officers in the school and students having relationships and the way it carried over to the village, I think it's just a brilliant way to have the school, the village, the police department, and have students have this incredible experience of police officers. And it's not like the way I may have grown up thinking about police officers. And I think it's an outstanding experience for kids all the way from elementary school and especially in high school. I think it's really valuable.
Yeah, can I second that also? I think, the dynamic that I see with kids and with the PAL program, which I think is excellent, is, over time, as kids get to know officers and likewise, kids have an instinct to not want to let people down, you know what I mean? And that comes out. There's, I'm not saying it's a panacea, but there's just a sense that that somebody benevolent is watching over you and you want to do the right thing. I think it's a very foundational thing. So thank you. Dave, you had a question? Or?
Yeah, I had a question about the survey and synthetic marijuana or synthetic cannabinoids. Does the survey allow for students to differentiate between those two? And does some of your prevention measures educate on that? And maybe does some of the schools' curriculum educate on the difference between synthetics? And I would love to hear if the students know the difference between synthetics.
And why is it important to know?
Well, synthetic. Oh, do you know what synthetic cannabinoids are?
Personally, no.
I don't either.
Ella?
I had to search it up.
Okay, they're chemically treated marijuana products that gives you, I think our police officers can probably speak to it better than I can, but that gives an illusion of marijuana high, but it's really chemicals that you're ingesting. So I'm wondering if the data allows for the differentiation between those two and how we're educating students on it.
We are not, but yes, I certainly am aware of those products. They're very often sold, and it's not even just like K2 spice, those types of things. There's lots of variations, chemically produced variations of THC, and they're mostly sold in gas stations. They're not illegal. They're illegal for those under 21. But in New York, some of them actually are illegal as well. So we have information on them. I would have to look to see if the survey specifically asks. It's not the data that we report on, that we're required to report on. I can look to see if, I don't think that they are asking specifically the students about that, but we certainly could educate. I mean, and it's important too, because I think there is an ability to potentially get those items a little easier because they are more accessible in convenience type gas station stores, and they can be very, very dangerous.
A lot with those issues are how they're targeted to children too. They mimic other products that you might think are Sour Patch Kids, but they're really some kind, and then all of a sudden you're ingesting it, you don't know that you are.
For sure. So we can certainly put some information out about that.
Yeah, Dr. Szymanski, do you know if we educate the
I
students on that?
suspect that it comes up in 8th grade because they focus on current drug trends, which tend to be a little bit of a moving target, but I will need to check on it. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Are we seeing it in and about with young people?
of the risks that they were taking. And they don't know what's even it is something that's synthetic.
Yeah.
So I have spoken to you before, where there's like ethical entities that might be part of the
Can I piggyback on that? Because I wonder if other trustees or parents have seen this. You know, one of the things, I'm no cheerleader for social media, but one of the interesting things I've noticed is kids have a lot more access to these videos of like things gone wrong, somebody who vaped and what happened to their lung. I see, or you know, marijuana and mental health issues, and I see kids, maybe in my own house, who, when you start watching one thing like social media and how it works, you get more of it, and they're actually exposed to a lot of not just messaging, but, you know, I've had kids show me these videos. It's like real stuff, and it's real, and it happened to somebody, and oddly enough, paradoxically, I think that there is a sort of benefit in social media exposing kids to, like, you know, what's happening, what actually happens to people, and that's what I see. So I think that could be part of it as well. Mr. Principal Clayman.
The only other thing I'd add to that topic is we have annual trainings through BOCES, Regional Partnership of Educators, that includes safety training and some of the most recent trends around drug usage. And I mean, this stuff in gas stations is not illegal because the legal system just doesn't move fast enough, right? By the time they outlaw one compound, they make another compound that's identical, and then they're targeting young folks with the packaging. We you know, connecting with our health educators so that they're aware of those trends, but also importantly connecting with our counseling team so that they're aware of some of the signs, some of the symptoms, some of the look-fors for students who might be addicted to or dabbling with those types of synthetics so that they can intervene quickly.
Can I also point out something that Joaquin and Ella raised, just sort of what's the sort of social construct of the school? And I think it's kind of a hidden factor that Principal Clayman and Assistant Principal Ware have worked so hard on attendance policies and keeping track of it, and I guess frankly what I would call sort of supportive consequences. There's we've really in this school absolutely raised the baseline, and I think that attendance is in a lot of ways, and I wonder if you agree, Principal Clayman, it's kind of a little bit of a proxy for how much trouble a kid's getting into, and there was a lot of pushback, I think, in the community initially, but I think it's really important because I think it's that early warning signal and that early sort of beneficial, positive signal to kids of, you know, we're trying to keep you on this path. So I just want to have your perspective on having dealt with that issue very hands-on, what you see.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that when you're talking about school culture and you're talking about the expectations that adults have for students and that young folks know they're being held to, I see real clean parallels between the attendance work that we've done and also the work we've done around substances and the bathrooms and everything. When students engage in conduct, whether that is substance use or missing school, and no one notices and no one says anything, no student thinks that they are allowed to smoke in the bathroom. Right? No one thinks that the rules allow for that. But when it happens and nothing happens about it, then it builds, right? And it builds with the individual student, and it builds culturally. And so to be able to take these two twin issues that are very intertwined, but they're separate, and shine spotlights on them and say to the student body, we want to treat you with the respect and dignity that you deserve. We don't want to have to micromanage your bathroom usage. However, it is unacceptable for there to be vaping in the bathroom. Period, end of story. And so if what we need to do is micromanage the bathroom so that students are not vaping in the bathroom, we will do that. Yeah. It's treating you like you are younger than you are, it is not an effective use of our resources because we could put them to other things, but the bare minimum is that a kid can go to the bathroom and not have to deal with vapes, right? And so for a 6-month stretch that happened to correspond with when we were co-located a little bit more intimately with the middle school students, we had monitors at every bathroom, and students had to sign in order to use the bathroom. And then once the middle school, once we had a little bit more space, once the Farragut wing was completed, we had assemblies with all the students, and we said, we want to treat you like the young adults that you are. We're removing the monitors, we're removing the stipulations. If this happens, then we will go back to where we were. Right? We went a good stretch with nothing. We had one incident. We reinstated the bathroom monitors for the male students, not for the female students, because it was a male bathroom and that was in place for 3 weeks, and we met with the students again, and we said, we don't want to do this, right? We don't want to use resources for this. We don't want to treat you in this manner, and vaping in the bathroom is not acceptable. So show us that we can trust you. And since then, we haven't had any reports of any additional. And so I think that's when what you permit, you promote.
That's
right?
well put.
Whether that's vaping or whether that's attendance concerns, when you shine a flashlight on it, a spotlight on it, rather, then you, not a flashlight, spotlight.
It's a very powerful flashlight.
That has cultural impact, and that moves behaviors.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that detail, Andy. Any questions or comments, David?
Yeah. So the one statistic that just blew my mind, and I'd love to kind of better understand this. 43% of our students who are drinking got it from home with their parents' permission. That is an incredibly disappointing statistic, and I know we're spending a lot of time here talking about education for our students, and I'm just curious what we're doing as far as education for our parents here in the community. No, I'm being really serious. Like that's a terribly disturbing statistic. If 43% of our student drinkers are getting that alcohol from their parents.
I just want to add that I was actually more taken aback at the number of students who were drinking in other people's homes with other people's parents' permission. That was actually more striking to me.
I hope not, yeah.
Around the education of liability and risk factors and everything that's associated with that.
And just a layer, I was wondering with the legalization of marijuana, how these numbers might shift in years to come.
No, if we keep taking the data every 2 years, we'll find out.
Right.
And I don't have the percentage written down, but I just want to make sure that we're reading these numbers correctly, because what I'm showing here is from home with my parents' permission, it's 35 students. So there were 81 students is the cohort of students of the 330 students who took that survey. 81 reported that they had drank in the past, or that they had clicked off one of these questions showing that they obtained substances in one of the ways listed below.
Right.
And I do, even though it's concerning and 35 is not a number we're happy to see, I can give you, because I wrote down, I thought somebody might be interested in that number. That number comes out to be 4 8th graders, 13 10th, and 18 12th. But it was 50 in 2023. So it has gone down significantly, but still, that's why we want to focus, when we talk about what we want to focus on, is still parent education. We, in addition to the student survey, we also did a community survey, and we're publicizing those results actually on our Facebook page starting tomorrow. 1 question per day will get posted, and we're hoping there'll be conversation around it as well. But there are still parents that believe that students need to be exposed to alcohol before they go off to school, that they think, or to college, and they, and that's an education piece, because all of the research that we read about shows that not to be true. That if you're given permission, it gives you permission to drink, use substances more when you're going away. So it's just more education that we want to try to provide to parents.
Catherine.
As I listen to the data and the conversation, something that strikes me that I'm trying to make sense of, and I'm hoping that all the stakeholders in the room can help me with, is it's really exciting to see the decrease in usage. When we look at national trends around teen mental health, we know that has gone down and suicide has gone up over the past 20 years, per se. And not that there's a relationship between the two, but we also know that there has been an increase in teen isolation. And when we know that you're speaking of areas where people can socialize and maybe the pad is not a safe space. And you even raised, they were like, what are we going to do for our kids? I guess that's where we're the stakeholders that have to come up with some solutions with our students as to where they can interact and have fun and let off steam, because that's important too in growth and development. And just to cite one really positive example is I know a lot of the students love being part of the theater program because at the end they have a big cast party and there's a tradition of giving paper plate awards and good food, and people really love it and they look forward to it, and I think some people may even join just for that social opportunity. So I guess my one challenge to all of us is how we can meet students' needs and talk about that more openly and creatively amongst each other and with students.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Yeah, I mean, I know, Joaquin, you had mentioned that, and I know there are a few people at this table who grew up in town and understand how small it is and how limited the opportunities are. So right, I'm not, I think I understand missing a place, going into the woods is a missed opportunity, but I think it's incumbent on us as a community. I know we tackled this with the youth council and talked about it, finding those third spaces outside of sports and theater and kind of extracurricular, and figuring out ways where kids can, be social without needing to either go into the woods or feel like they need to drink or use substances.
Yeah, can I second that also? I remember, I guess it was just last year when we had homecoming. It's a beautiful day, and it was just, there's videos online like showing kids like how the 80s were. Everybody sort of hanging out, and it was, I was there, so the 80s, and that homecoming was just like that. It was a beautiful night. Everybody was out from like age 1 to 90, so to speak. And I know there's limited opportunities to do that. We can't have homecoming every weekend, but I do hope, and this is something we've talked about, right? And with the expanded facilities, that we'll have more opportunities to do things like that. Because I think, Catherine, you're right. It's, those cast parties. We hosted one. The kids, it's an awesome time. It's an absolutely memorable time. It's not because any alcohol is served. It's just that opportunity to be together in a meaningful way. And you also put it well, third spaces. So that's something very much, I think, on all of our radars. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I would just like to highlight that this is also something that we talk about in the student union. So Ella and I work very closely with student union, the student union president, the vice president, and then all the grade level representatives. And so something we've done, well, before I talk about that, I think everyone has said correctly, like, there are parents who know that their kids were going to PAD. And, so if we're wondering, how is it that so many parents are okay, or, our kids are getting alcohol from their parents, well, a lot of them already knew that their kids were going out to the woods to drink, so it's not really much of a difference. But something that the student union has done, Mr. Lopez, he's led like these social events. He's trying to get more of them. So in the past, the school has had a lot of dances and like these socials, but they were really, some of them, there was a lot of like pre-gaming, people showing up drunk, and then inappropriate behavior, so they got shut down. But the student union is slowly trying to make those social events happen again. So the first one, we had one this year, the snowball for underclassmen, which was more or less successful depending on who you ask, but that's just an example of, what a student in the building, what's going on.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I'm really curious about the cohort of children who in 12, or young adults who in 12th grade are reporting usage and in 10th they did not. And does the survey in any way pull out what happened from 10th to 12? Where, when, how, were there risk and protective factors that shifted? What was the environment that made them make a different choice that time and maybe thereafter?
I don't think the survey would pull that out. I think that's why we tried to do the focus groups. So since we survey every other year on that off year, we've done it. It was only the first time that we did it last year, but that was really the reason to go in and actually talk to a group of students to try to delve into their understanding and a little bit better. And just one of the things that came up just in reference to what you guys were just talking about for alternative activities, that's something we were specifically asking. You know, the Youth Advocate Program has the center downstairs, and was talking about, you know, what could we do? What kind of activities could we provide that you'd be interested in? And the bottom line was, not if there's supervision. They really aren't. So I think, to me, what it comes down to, and also in the community survey that we gave, we asked that question, and it was one of the most responded to open answers. And you know, it seems like the community really wants to see lots of other activities for students. I think there's probably a lot of parents that would be interested in helping organize, but I think the ideas have to come from the students. They have to be student driven so that it's something that they actually want to do. And then we could all support for sure, but I think when the adults all get together and have an idea of what we think the kids are going to enjoy, it just doesn't work so
Tap
good.
dance.
I actually just feel like going back in the Wayback Machine, and it's a compliment, I think, to everybody who's in the room and previous administrators. So I'm class of '81. When I was 8th grade president, which you can imagine that's probably 1976, I was a liaison, youth, what is it, youth liaison to the school board. So, hi guys. And my children were class of 2015 and 2017, and all I have to say, first of all, is wow, have things changed since 1981, and also since 2015 and 2017. So my children stopped going to the dances because they just didn't like to see their friends or former friends get completely wasted, show up wasted. And somehow the parents, so many people have already spoken to this tonight, if you will, so I can't remember exactly how you said it. If you allow it, then
If you permit, you promote.
you permit, you promote. And so the parents just, oh, that's okay, seem to turn a blind eye to it. That's the way our children kind of phrased it to us. And we didn't say, you can't go to those. They just said, no, we're not going. And in fact, we were, don't you want to socialize more? Or don't you want to? No, we'll just have people, our friends, over to our house. And that's what that was their solution to being sociable but without having the peer pressure. They just pulled away from it. And it coincidentally is also what I did when I was a nerd. But it's not, then it was considered a nerd because it was in the minority, but now it seems that completely the numbers have shifted all the way around. I can't believe it. I'm so, like, 35 people who drink? That's, yay, congratulations.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing a great job. I can accept that there's more work to be done, but this is incredible how far we've come. It's everybody. It's the outreach in the schools. So rather than the cops being the bad guys, you actually know the names of the students. Congratulations to you too. It's all very, and to be able to, and I walk past. I live right next to the school. I walk past the school. I see the cars there, and I see that it's a welcome situation when the police are walking through the schools as opposed to uh-oh. You know, this is to me, this is all of it. Again, I want to be perfectly acknowledging that there is more work to be done. But I will also I'm amazed, I'm impressed, and I'm very happy with all the work that you have done to get us to this point.
Thank you. That's very kind. Any other questions or comments from anyone? No, Mayor Drake, did you want to?
We can move to public comments. Is there any member of the public that would like to address either board? No, thank you. Just my closing before we move to adjournment. One of the main driving forces between my thoughts on proposing this idea with Linda was 2 years ago. I remember when they presented to our board, and I remember had a lot of questions as we sat on our dais down at Village Hall, and I had a lot of internal questions, but I didn't really want to ask because I knew I'd be putting you two on the spot. But a lot of the questions I had were, how is the school responding to this? What is the Board of Ed thinking about this? You know, hopefully they're doing stuff on their side. And I think the benefit and my biggest takeaway this evening is that I'm hearing it, and we're all hearing it together. We don't have to play telephone with our two representatives to you, and that this has been the biggest benefit for me this evening. So I appreciate everyone working together to get this done, and that we're all together this evening. Another takeaway is just the great work that the police department is doing, and everyone in this room has acknowledged that this evening. I've already known it, and I'm glad to see and hear that everyone else is recognizing the work of the chief and his leadership team and the officers of our department. And then one other, just my final thought is, I want this program to continue. We have 2 years left on the program. If anyone is out there watching this from home or listening to this after this meeting, please write Congressman Latimer's office. They are our advocate for this program in Washington, D.C. They are trying to help us right now in extending the program, but I think the more support they know that comes from our community, other than just myself, Linda and Joanne, the better it is, and more important they realize it is to our entire community. And just based on the stats by themselves, since the inception of the program and since the original survey, our stats are going down. So I view that as an accomplishment and a testament to the program directors who are running the program, and I'd like to see it continued. Outside of my first comment, if there's anything, I won't speak on behalf of the rest of the board, but just for me, if there's anything I can do, any initiatives that outside of the building, other than what we do with the police department, if there's anything that the village can do, please just let me know. If there's another initiative that would be an outside of the building initiative that you would want us to carry the torch on, I'd be happy to entertain that and move that to the board as well. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and I think, Mayor Drake, I would agree with you also. One thing that's sort of starkly obvious tonight is how the work of the way the youth advocate feeds into what police know and what they do, what Dr. Szymanski mentioned, what our educational programs within the school, what Principal Clayman mentioned, what the student union gets involved in. So and what we as trustees also pay attention to. So it really is, it all flows together. And I agree with you, and that it's very important to maintain that. So thank you again. And Trustee Myers, you want to say something?
I just want to make a little apology. When I referenced the mayor going to school here, I realized there are, I think, other people on the village board, people on the board of trustees, and police officers, all of whom grew up in Hastings and went to school and had that, probably didn't have the same experience that our students are having now. So with no intention of exclusion.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I thought you were going to say because you called him Tommy. I thought that's what I thought you were going to
I
apologize.
know, I realized that the moment it happened.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor.
That's my apology.
Okay. Statutorily, each group has to convene our meeting or end our meeting. So, Board of Trustees, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Trustees, is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.